like to invite Labour's candidate for Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, to join me on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Sadiq Khan. What do you think qualifies you best to be the next Mayor of London?
My good looks. No.
Should have gone to Specsavers.
So look. Very good, Nihal. How do you recover from that? Look, London is the greatest city in the world. And what's been the deal with London for 1,000 years? We've been open to trade, ideas, and people. And my story is the story of 99% of you here tonight. The London story is, and the promise is this: you work hard, you get a helping hand, and you can achieve anything. And 99% of you here tonight are self-made, whether you are a Sony award-winning DJ, presenter, whether you are Mayank Patel, whether you are Haroon and Farouk Sheikh, and that's the London story. And I think I've got the experience, the values, and the vision to make sure those who are missing out on the dream of London fulfill their potential. I've gone from a council estate to help run a successful business, to be a transport minister attending cabinet, and now listen, Nihal, I'm living the dream. I'm running to be the mayor of the greatest city in the world.
What makes you the friend of small and medium-sized businesses? Again, a question I asked Zach, very important to the people in this room.
I've been a small business person. I took a two-partner small business to employ more than 50 people, being very successful with a multi-million turnover. I've had the sleepless night worrying whether you'll get the extension from the bank manager. I've worried about whether you'll meet the wage bills towards the end of the month, worried about whether the business rates and the rates for the lease will go up, worried about whether you can employ the skilled staff that you need. And what you want is a pro-business mayor, somebody who's going to make sure he argues with the government to say the immigration policies are unfair, we can't recruit the talent we need. Somebody who's going to make sure we invest in young Londoners to get the skills to do the jobs of tomorrow. Somebody who'll make sure we spend in our public transport as modern and affordable. Somebody who'll make sure we have homes in London that Londoners can afford to live in.
Can I ask you, in fact, I'm going to ask you, can you put your hands up if you would like to see Jeremy Corbyn as the next Prime Minister of this country? Part of the reason, thank you to Jeremy Corbyn and his friend who are sitting over there. I just saw two hands go up in this room.
Hey, Sebastian, good to see you, mate.
And you are one of the reasons why Jeremy Corbyn is the leader, but you are the one that put him forward. This room clearly has no love for Jeremy Corbyn. You are associated with Jeremy Corbyn. Why should they trust you?
I mean, let's be frank. On the ballot paper on May the 5th, Jeremy Corbyn's name's not going to be there. Nor is David Cameron.
Labour
nor is David.
MP.
Nor is,
are you disassociating yourself from your leader?
Let me answer your first question before your second one. So David Cameron's name's not going to be there. Nor is Jeremy Corbyn. Nor is Boris Johnson's. With the greatest respect to all the other candidates, the choice is between Zach Goldsmith and myself. And look, what London doesn't want is a mayor who's the patsy of their leader. What London doesn't want, who's the Viceroy or the Governor-General for their party. What London wants is a champion, an advocate, and a fighter for the city. So that means, Nihal, sometimes I'll agree with Jeremy Corbyn, others I won't. You'll have seen today's newspapers where I disagree with Jeremy Corbyn about him saying that Crossrail 2 shouldn't be a priority. Jeremy and I will disagree when it comes to his views on business. What's important, though, is London gets the chance to choose a champion and a fighter for London, rather than a party imposing their candidate on the city.
How many times, then, saying how at odds you are with Jeremy Corbyn, how many times did you vote for a cut in corporation tax?
Since 2015.
How many times have you voted? Did you vote? OK, I'll put it simply. Did you vote for a cut in corporation tax? Do you feel that it should be cut?
I'll be voting against the budget on Tuesday.
So that's against the cut in corporation tax?
That's the reason why Ian Duncan-Smith has resigned. So Ian Duncan-Smith will probably be joining me in the lobbies on Tuesday. But look, Nihal, one of the great things about running for Mayor of London is you're no longer bound by collective responsibility.
Sorry, no, I'm going to stop you there because you said why don't you let me answer the first question for the second question? I've now asked you another question, and you've just completely ignored it. Corporation tax, it has been cut. That helps a lot of people in this room. Are you for that? Would you like to applaud the Chancellor for cutting corporation tax?
Well, look, I'm not in favour of increasing corporation tax. But if there's a choice... What
about cutting it?
But if there's a choice between cutting business rates and cutting corporation tax, I choose cutting business rates over corporation tax.
So you are, just to be clear, against cutting corporation tax. I just want to get that very clear. I know you said you wanted it to stay...
If the choice is between cutting business rates,
so it's gone down
cutting
to
corporation tax,
yeah.
I cut business rates.
But it's gone down to 17%. Do you applaud that?
Yeah.
Okay. We got there in the end, didn't we, ladies and gentlemen? Now, talking about numbers, you seem to think that if you freeze fares for Londoners, that you will save... Oh, sorry, that it will cost only £450 million.
That's a lot of money.
Right? It's a lot of money. TfL have gone on the record to say that they think they will lose £1.9 billion in revenue with your policy. Who's lying?
Well, nobody's lying. Let me explain how I reached my figures and how they reached their figures. So I'm the only candidate who had the experience of being a Minister for Transport and being responsible for London's transport, as well as a Minister for big projects like Crossrail. TfL is good, but it's flabby. The fares over the last 8 years have increased by more than 50%. Londoners pay more in public transport than any other city in Europe. Let me give you an example of how we can make savings on transport for London. Last year, £383 million spent on consultants and part-time staff. Last year, £61 million lost with fare evasion. There are 18 separate franchises running our buses in London. 40% are run by companies owned by the governments of France, Germany, and Holland. So the fares we pay go towards reducing the fares, guess where? France, Germany, and Holland. Why aren't we bidding for those contracts? TfL has an engineering department that does the underground and a separate engineering department that does service. Why not merge the two and save huge sums of money? You know, if you picture Hyde Park, right? Transport for London owns land equivalent to 16 times Hyde Park. Why don't you use some of that land to build genuinely affordable homes for Londoners? Keep the freehold and have a revenue stream coming in. You know Hong Kong's Transport Authority? Hong Kong's Transport Authority raises more money through clever use of property than by fares. So I'm saying my fully funded fares package, we can freeze the fares over the next 4 years, you're paying not a penny more. Now, the TfL assumption of the £1.9 billion is based on an assumption of increasing fares over the next 4 years by more than £1,000. It's based on a 5-year business plan and based on an inflation rate higher than the Bank of England, and I don't agree with them.
I mean, your numbers are assumptions as well, in the sense that...
No, TfL agreed with my numbers. By the way, TfL's commissioner, Mike Brown, went on LBC radio a couple of weeks ago and said he can see how my numbers are reached.
And then, of course, in a quite tetchy exchange on BBC London, as you'll be aware of, the journalist at BBC London said, TfL have stated there's a £1.9 billion hole in our revenue if you get your plans in. Now, you're asking this audience... You're asking this audience to believe you, a human rights lawyer, who did, yes, of course, work in the Ministry of Transport, over the people who run TfL, whose job it is to run our transport system.
To be fair to Mike Brown, and one should be fair to the TfL commissioner, after the interview, he went on LBC and was quite clear, and also he was quite clear to the Assembly after the interview, to give him some credit.
How would you deal with the expectations of the Asian community and your responsibility to all Londoners? I kind of think of this as the Obama effect, whereby many African Americans feel as though nothing was really achieved. You've made great stay of what a great thing it would say to the world if there was an Asian mayor here in London. But what about balancing those expectations?
You know, John F. Kennedy, not that I'm comparing myself to John F. Kennedy, John F. Kennedy was the first Catholic president of the United States of America. And John F. Kennedy went to a Catholic church and said, don't vote for me because I'm a Catholic and you're a Catholic. So I'm not saying to you, vote for me because I'm an Asian and you're Asian. The reason why I ask you to vote for me and support me is because I believe I have the experiences. I've helped run a successful business. I've been a minister attending government, cabinet. I've made tough decisions. I have the right values and the vision to make sure all Londoners can have the potential fulfilled like many of us did. So, Nihal, you know that mass migration from the subcontinent only began 40 years ago. By virtue of being the first generation or the second generation, we're going to be first-offs. You're the first of Sony award-winning BBC presenter. Shahid Khan, first of producer receiving awards. Mayank's the first of, and we can all be first-offs. I'm not on a pedestal in the sense that I don't think I'm greater or better than any of you, but just imagine the message it sends to the boy and girl on a council estate if I can have the best job in politics running London. Imagine the message it sends somebody who's the son or daughter of an immigrant. If London chooses a mayor from my background, I've had the pleasure of opening my fast when I'm fasting Ramadan in synagogues, in gurdwaras, in temples, in churches. London is a beacon for the rest of the world. Imagine the message it sends when London chooses the most pro-business mayor ever. A Londoner born and raised, proud of his city, but somebody who builds bridges between different communities. Just imagine.
Lastly, just a question on judgment. Round of applause. Lastly, a question on judgment. Back in 2010, you spent £2,500 on Eid and Diwali and birthday cards. You returned the money, but you expensed it. The taxpayer had to pay for it initially. Then, most recently, you had to fire an aide because that aide had sent out some very offensive tweets. It goes down to judgment. You know, there are some scurrilous stories about your brother-in-law, which, frankly, most people would say are fairly ridiculous. But on this issue of judgment, how can the people of London trust you, just with those two examples I give?
Well, give you an example of my parliamentary assistant. I mean, look, the parliamentary office manager followed all the correct procedures when it came to employing him. The employment best practice, you put out an advert, people advertise, you do the checks, get the referees, and she did nothing wrong in his employment. As soon as I heard about the allegations, he was suspended straight away, so we could investigate. He resigned the next day. We couldn't have acted swifter. In relation to the issue of the Diwali cards and the Eid cards and the Christmas cards, I followed the practice of other MPs. As soon as I discovered it was wrong, paid the money back and apologised unequivocally. You make a mistake, you fess up, and you move on.
But it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you're sitting there and you're a new MP and you've got a new team and perhaps not everyone knows the rules, but billing to the taxpayer £2,500 worth of Eid and Diwali cards, surely...
And Christmas.
And Christmas and birthday. Good grief. He wants to dig his own hole. I'm
consistent.
Yeah, you're consistent.
A mayor for all Londoners.
But the judgment involved in
Eid, Diwali or Christian. And by the way, your gold is safe with me.
The judgment involved in that is the question. Because you can argue, as many MPs did, building birdhouses and all that, oh, they were the rules, we didn't know.
Yeah, I'm not making excuses. I'm not making excuses. It was a mistake, it was an error of judgment, and I've apologised. I'm not making excuses.
All right, that's all we got time for. Ladies and gentlemen, Sadiq Khan.
Thank you very much. Cheers.